Welcome to this Douglas Dialogues conversation. And today I'm joined by very special guests, the renowned Scottish sculptor, Alan Beattie Herriot, and the other renowned Scottish sculptor, Hector Guess, who's just equally as renowned. And we're really lucky because we're going to talk about one of their new projects, the Frederick Douglass statue in Belfast. And we're really excited to learn more about the process and the artistic visions behind it. And before we start, I'd just like to introduce Hector and Alan to you all. Alan is considered one of Scotland's most successful figurative sculptors, with works throughout the UK, in France, the Netherlands, Belgium, Norway. So make sure that you go and check all those great works out when you're in one of those countries. And his work is also considered to be among the most eclectic and evocative and enduring in Scotland. In addition to his sculptures, Alan has illustrated several books and paintings, both contemporary as well as traditional. And they are most of them are in private collections around the world. So you might be one of the lucky people who has one of Alan's paintings. So let us know if you do. And if you want to learn more about Alan and his work, you can do so on his website. That's alanherriot.co.uk. And you'll find the link here also in the notes. Then we're also joined by Hector. As I said, Hector's desire to develop art led him to Florence in Italy, beautiful spot. And he actually went to the traditional atelier of Charles H. Cecil Studios, where he studied painting and sculpture. So excited to learn more about that. And Hector's sculptures offer a unique insight, sort of blending the natural and the abstract forms. And he seeks to explore the spaces beyond the rational, sort of illuminating the unconscious worlds within our human condition. So we'll see how that applies to the Frederick Douglass sculpture. Hector sculpts in a traditional material of clay, which is then cast into either bronze or a bronze resin. And you can find out more about Hector and his work at hectorguest.com. Again, the link will be here in the notes. So welcome, Alan, and welcome, Hector. Thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah, we're here to talk about one of your recent projects and works, the Frederick Douglass statue in Belfast in Northern Ireland, located at Rosemary Street. And maybe we start there, right? I'd say maybe we start there. A question that I had for you is, Frederick Douglass, when we talk about him during Douglass Week and throughout the year with people in our network and new participants, Fred Douglass he's a very iconic figure, and he was known for his activism, his advocacy, and I'm wondering how did his life and this amazing legacy, how did it influence the artistic vision behind this statue in Belfast? And maybe you can talk a little bit about the elements you have included in this specific representation. And maybe Hector, maybe you want to start off.
Um, yeah, I think we were really interested in sort of the power of literacy and how Frederick taught himself to read and write, and how that sort of led on to really sort of liberate him and for him to become the great man that he became. So we had the panels on the base of quotes and things that he said, and the poses of him sort of delivering a speech, as he did just around the corner in the church, and just how sort of the how that's such a positive message, the power of literacy, and how it's a good message for for the younger generations to learn from, and I just the positivity of that really.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. And Alan, welcome to the conversation. Would you like to
Hi.
add anything? Because I know that there's a bunch of things that are also Belfast specific to the statue. Do you want to add anything else? And thank you, Hector.
Well, it's a difficult one really, because Belfast, as you know, there's been right throughout several years now the troubles in Belfast. So from a political point of view, the message that was being put across, if you want, by Frederick Douglass was entirely different. And we thought that the power of word was what we were trying to get over. As Hector has just said, it's really interesting to know that this man taught himself to read and write, and his command of the English language was just absolutely spectacular, to say the least. And what he did in the subsequent years after being freed from slavery as a slave up till 21, it is very difficult to imagine what his life must have been like. Certainly, we've read about it, and at one point, in fact, we know that he was sent to what they called a slave breaker, and this man beat him once too often, and he eventually retaliated, and the fight apparently lasted 2 hours, and Douglas eventually won, and the man never bothered him again. But it's good to know, for instance, that he was bought, his freedom was bought later on after he came to, in fact, Belfast. I think it was the women's, it was an abolitionist group, I think, of women that actually got the money together. It was an enormous sum of money in those days when they found out who his owners were. And he was freed and became this amazing orator. As we say, a human rights campaigner, and an abolitionist. And that's what we have on the front of the truncated pyramid of the base of the statue. We wanted to get that across right away. And obviously, we were very fortunate, in fact, in Rosemary Street when it came to the actual site, because initially the statue was going to be set on ground level. And we worried about that a bit because Rosemary Street's a very busy place. And any public work which is set at that level is going to be under a bit of strain. The difficulty of a Saturday night, and the drinkers are coming out and swinging on it or whatever. So we were trying to avoid that, and we were very fortunate to find that there was a planter, a very large planter, close to where we had originally thought that we were going to have to site the statue. And that alleviated all sorts of problems, because sculpture isn't just simply a matter of making a statue or whatever else. It involves an awful lot of rules and regulations which you have to deal with local councils, city councils. For instance, if you have services under the foundations of whatever it is you're putting up, water, gas, electricity, you have to let all of those service providers know about it. You have to have special licenses. You have to comply with safety regulations. And in this instance, we were very fortunate. Hector and I were very fortunate to get a local contractor who had already done a great deal of work with Belfast City Council. He took on the project for us, and literally smoothed the way, and dealt with all of those licenses, and simply let us get on with the artistic side of things. And that was to interpret this wonderful fella, Frederick Douglass, which I hope we did.
Oh, I think that I'm absolutely sure you did. I mean, we've seen the unveiling of the statues garnered so much interest, and it's garnered significant attention throughout Belfast and beyond, really. And thank you for those answers. I was wondering specifically, there's I know that there is a pocket watch there in if I remember correctly, that you included in the sculpture. Could you talk a little bit about that? Is that I was asking there about some of the elements that you included, and I was thinking about that one too. Is there any reason behind that, why you included that?
Absolutely. I think, Hector, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I think Belfast City gifted it to Douglas. So we felt it was important to include that. that not correct?
No, no, no. He bought it himself. I think he felt that that a watch was the emblem of somebody who had actually made it, who was socially accepted. So a gentleman would have a pocket watch, and he bought this watch in Belfast, an exceedingly fine watch, I think were his words. And it was something he thought he would never in his lifetime, as a slave, never in his lifetime would he actually own a watch. So it was a big deal, if you want, for him to do that. And also the fact that it was made in Belfast, I think. So his link with Belfast was important to us when we were actually putting in whatever we had on the base. All of the inscriptions were specific to Belfast. His first sight of Ireland, if you want. I think I have these. I printed out these copies of the panels to let your viewers see. 1, 2, and 3. Basically, they're the various inscriptions. I can't think. Was that too close? Yeah. They were done in a book form, obviously, because we wanted to accentuate the power of the word. This is the inscription of the plaque on the front. It's simple enough. It's the nameplate and Frederick Douglass's dates. I think we missed one there, didn't we? Yeah. He said, in fact, when he first came to Ireland, instead of the bright blue sky of America, I am covered with the soft grey fog of the Emerald Isle. I breathed, and lo, the chattel becomes a man. So that's in 1846, written in Belfast. So also we referred to his where he was born in Tuckahoe, near Hillsborough in Talbot County, Maryland. And he said, I have no knowledge of my age, never having seen any authentic record containing it. His real name at that time was Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. So he obviously changed it. I forget the reason why he changed it to Douglas. It was quite amusing at the time, but I can't quite remember what it was. Perhaps Hector, I don't know. Can you remember?
Oh, I can't remember why.
Sorry to drop you in on that one.
No, I mean, and we have, I specifically remember there's another conversation here. If you're already on YouTube, and I'll link that here, there's a whole conversation about his name change that we did in the past, and, sort of his travels, Douglas's travels, and, the dangers he encountered and the challenges after his autobiographies that he published, and, the dangers that he encountered, which was one of the reasons why he traveled to the UK and Ireland in the first place, and you can learn more about that here, and I'll link it. So I won't do the little summary here now, but because we want to focus on your work, but I'll link it here and you can learn more about Douglas. And actually, we just had an amazing conversation about the Bailey family, the Bailey part of the Douglas family, that you can also check out if you're interested. But going back to these links that you described, Alan and Hector, I think it's really important to see how strong the link was between Douglas and his and his time in Belfast, his time in Northern Ireland and in Ireland as well, which is one of the things that we specifically discussed during Douglas Week 2024 this year. And so I'm really excited to hear that this watch made it into the statue, and very excited that you know about this detail and that you included it. And speaking of which, because I was talking to a friend about this who's very fascinated about, that very specific watch and the idea, this link between Belfast and Douglas and then his later life and the way and the many things that he did after his time. It changed him a lot. It was very transformative, as he said in his own words, his time in Ireland and in Northern Ireland and in the UK. So I'm wondering, what kind of reactions have you guys gotten? What have you received any feedback, any reactions from the communities in Northern Ireland or beyond after the statue was unveiled?
Hector?
I haven't actually. No, I just saw the reaction at the unveiling, which seemed to be really positive, which was lovely to see. But yeah,
Yeah, so positive,
Uh,
positive
Yeah.
reactions there. Alan, how about you?
yeah, well, I think well, I agree with Hector. The reaction at the unveiling was, in fact, was very good indeed. Um, I think that it's been limited, certainly from a local point of view, if we are talking about Belfast, because we do not live in Belfast.
Of
We live
course.
in Edinburgh. But a friend of mine's actually had done a panel, a low relief panel of Frederick Douglass, a portrait. And apparently, and you probably your societies will know, and the Douglas followers will know that he came to Scotland and gave various talks, and one in particular in Hawick in the Scottish borders. And I attended the unveiling of that plaque with a friend of mine who had actually made the bronze plaque, which was mounted very close to where he had actually given a talk. I don't know if it's of interest. I'm sure it will be, but let's see. He was at the time in Hawick. He was denied a speaking platform by the Relief Church in Kirkwynd. Douglas was invited at short notice by the Reverend Andrew Rogie to instead deliver his historic lecture at the Green Kirk, Myers Law Green. The church was demolished in 1969, but the cause of abolitionism and values espoused by Douglas remain relevant to this day. So it was one of the most important speeches ever given in Hawick, very small border town at the time. But it's just very interesting that this man seemed to get out. He was everywhere. He was like a pop star. He knew the power of photography. I think, Hector, you could correct me, but I think there was about at least 80 portrait photographs of him, which we used obviously in the making of the sculpture and the sculpting of it, to try and get this fellow dressed the way he would. He was always beautifully dressed. He never smiled in his photographs. It was all part of the image that he wanted to portray, which was important to his cause, because he was fighting against racism without question of a doubt. And so apart from all of the other causes he took up, it was racism that was the crux of the matter, you know?
Yeah, and I think you touch a very important topic there. There's actually, I think at this time, there's about 160, if I'm not wrong, even more than 160 photos of Freddie Douglass that have been that have been uncovered and found in many different places, which is really exciting. And you said, he was very specific and very conscious and of his representation, and it was very important to him. And I wonder how you guys went about this this challenge too, because obviously you can't talk to Douglas. You can read about him and learn about him, but kind of how did you both, because you both worked on the statue, how did you go about this? Like, how did you have conversations? How did you come to this specific statue? How did your own work, but also kind of we talked about the representation, the historical representation, the location where the statue now is. How did that all influence what kind of statue you came up with in the end? And how did you split up the process, or how did you collaborate? If you can maybe talk a little bit about that.
Okay, Hector, can I just start off with this one? Because I met Hector many years ago in Powder Hall, I think it's Powder Hall Foundry. And I had been commissioned to do a statue of the Royal Army Medical Corps. And I asked Hector at the time if he would like to come and help with this particular piece, because it was two figures, it was larger than life size, it was quite a big statue for the National Arboretum in Staffordshire, which is an enormous arboretum. And Hector was able to bring a particular technical tool which I had never used before, called a pantograph, because we had to scale up the maquette, which we already had, and which belonged to the Corps. They already owned the copyright of this particular piece, which had been done way back after the First World War. And Hector brought in his pantograph, and which I was amazed about, and we set that up, and we produced, I think, a superb memorial, which the Royal Army Medical Corps were absolutely delighted with, and it was unveiled at the Arboretum. From there on, when it came to the Frederick Douglass Commission, I didn't know about it. It was Hector that came to me and said, "There's a commission coming up in Belfast," and I had already done two. I'd done the boxers, Rinty Monaghan and Caldwell. So there was two Belfast boxers done, and so he said, "Well, you've done some work in Belfast. Well, we could do it as a joint project." So when we got together and decided how we were going to do all of this, we had to actually fill in some very complicated forms. And the actual platform, which is a Belfast platform, the Bravo Solutions tendering website, wouldn't accept the fact that we were going in as a consortium, the two of us. So at the last minute, I had to go in on my own. And with a portfolio of my work behind me and public work, which Hector didn't have, we were very fortunate. We got. I thought it'll sort itself out. It doesn't matter. Everybody will know that it's you and I, Hector and I, which it was, of course. So once we got over that, we decided together on what sort of what the pose should be and what the story we needed to tell. Because I admit freely, I didn't know a great deal about Frederick Douglass, and nor did Hector. But we weren't long in picking that one up and deciding this fellow was really quite something. And of course, there have been a number of statues made in various parts of the world by very competent sculptors here and there. So we felt that we had to come up to scratch on that one particularly, and we didn't worry about it. We knew we could, and so we decided on the pose, and from that point on, it was important that we put over that he was strong, he was an orator, and most of the things that you see, most of the statues that you see are of that ilk, as it were. And we included. In fact, I think what I'll do is if I hand over to Hector and let him explain the actual pose of the figure itself with the chains and what have you. I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, please, Hector, go ahead.
Yeah, so we wanted to convey him sort of delivering a speech as the situation is just around the corner from where he did deliver one of his speeches in Belfast. And then the chain to obviously symbolize his freedom, the broken link to symbolize how he exactly broke his chain. And then the panels to emphasize what he said and how
Belfast.
that exactly quotes of things he said in Belfast mainly. So all kind of came together when me and Alan sat down and designed the pose basically and on how it should be.
So from that point on, in fact, from that point on, Hector's ability on technological stuff was digital, because he then produced the maquette digitally, a basic figures which would be scaled up with a pantograph, the pantograph, to the particular heights we want. It's a very accurate tool for scaling up. That whole process took quite some time, because we have to have the steel armature welded up inside the actual form itself, the form bulked out, and then clay applied, which it was done over a period of time. But it is quite a process. And from that point after, sorry.
Well, we made two maquettes. The first one was quite a quick maquette in clay, which was used to win the job, so to speak. And then it wouldn't have been accurate enough to scale up with the pantograph. So then we did a much more anatomically sort of correct version of it, so we could then use that to scale up to make the full size monument.
That's right. So
Yeah.
it's as I say, it's quite a complicated business. But it was very successful, I'm sure. Once the piece is in clay, we literally hand it over. The clients came over to the foundry, and the clay is then signed off, or any changes that they want can be made there. And then from that point on, the piece is handed over to the foundry. In this case, it was Powder Hall Foundries in Edinburgh, where we actually sculpted the piece anyway. It saves everybody running about. It's all under the one roof. And they produced the bronze, and from there it was taken over to the site. And during that process, I was obviously dealing with the contractor, because we had to upgrade the planter. We had to get over all of those licensing problems. But that was all done in the background, and we got on with the job, as it were. And then delighted to know that we worked it all out beautifully, so that when it came to the sighting, there were no problems. And the statue was actually installed very quickly indeed. It was the whole thing went smoothly, and we left the contractors to finish off the surrounds around the statue itself. It was very nice indeed. I think the whole thing was fairly successful. I believe that there's an actual plan to upgrade Rosemary Street, so that there is every chance in the future that the statue will be repositioned, and possibly even more, a new base provided for the bronze. But that might be some way down the line.
That's exciting. That's exciting. It's really interesting to learn about your process, and especially working as a collaborative there, like you said, and working on this together. And while you both work and have worked with sculptures before, lots obviously, and you both work as painters as well, and coming together and finding time and sitting down, brainstorming together. How long would you say did this take, like this process from, the very early beginnings to the final statue that we now see in Rosemary Street?
God, I'd have to look back in my records. I don't know, Hector, would you say what, 4 months?
Something like that. Yeah, I think, yeah, the whole process was probably about 4 months. I think the actual
Yeah,
sculpting of the clay was about 2.5 months thereabout. And then obviously
yeah,
then the
yeah.
found
Well, yeah,
yeah, and then obviously the foundry took a couple months as well on top of that to
that's right.
cast
Of
them in
course, yeah, that's
to
right.
to ca
Yeah. So
cast into the
our
bronze.
part.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess including the foundry, quite a few months really. Um,
Yeah, it's
but
beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really interesting how how many different levels of thought and redoing and adjusting and everything happens behind the scenes. People walk by the statue every day and are not aware of obviously how much work there went into it, but the
Yeah.
detail that you guys focused on and the many different stages of the process. So thank you so much for sharing. And I was thinking while you were talking sort of about, you know, um, the power of public art, really, obviously it has the power to inspire people and provoke thought. And I'm wondering, Douglas as this amazing man that he was, what message or what do you hope people take away when they see the statue, when they walk by, and what do you hope people take with them when they pass Frederick Douglass's statue in Belfast?
Who are we directing this one to? Who are you directing this one to?
Oh,
It's a
either of you,
different.
both of you.
This is so. This,
Both
yeah,
of
I
you.
know.
Alan, you want to go
It's
first?
Yeah. Well, I'll speak for Britain. It's so difficult. It really is. I mean, what would I love people to take away? I'd love them to realize that regardless of color, we are all the same. We are all human beings, regardless. And for some god-awful reason, it doesn't seem to be getting through to an awful large proportion of the world's population. Never mind what's happening in Northern Ireland. So really, sometimes I despair. I look at the world today and despair, and I wonder, what would Frederick Douglass think of this now? You know, let's face it, when he was involved, the Civil War was just was in process, and just almost ending, in fact, and did end. And it didn't end to his satisfaction either. He spoke, in fact, at Abe Lincoln's statue's unveiling in Washington, and he wasn't particularly complimentary. He was not a man to mince his words. And although he acknowledged that Abe Lincoln had done a great deal to abolish slavery, he also reckoned that he didn't or hadn't done enough, and there was much more to do. Now, we know that because it didn't end with the end of the Civil War. Racism just simply goes on. And so I don't know what people will take away from this particular statue in wherever there is a statue of Frederick Douglass in the world. I really don't know what people will. I would hope that they will take away the fact that we are all equal, and this man is absolutely correct in what he is actually fighting for, and it should be abolished. But will they? A lot of people do, but there's not enough of us. Maybe when we're all the same color, when we all turn a sort of, mid-color, whatever it's going to be, then we'll all be, that's okay.
Yeah,
But
thank you.
really,
Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
I'm
I know
sorry.
it's a tough question. We're not in people's heads, but maybe some of our audience members can share and want to share, what they think and what they feel when they walk past your statue. Thank you so much, Alan. And Hector, did you have any like sort of when you were, working with the statue, when you are both developing this and now that you see it in real life, is there anything that you hope people take away or, when they visit or walk past the statue, the sculpture, anything that you hope for when you created, this specific sculpture or any of your sculptures? Is there anything specific that, why you do this and anything that you would like to share?
Well, yeah, I think with Douglas, he was obviously an amazing man, and I just the fact that he taught himself to read and write, I thought that was, and how that really sort of led to so much in his life, really sort of. I thought that was just a particularly powerful message to get across to everyone. And I think highlighting the journey of the greatness of education and everything that can lead to, really. I just thought he symbolized that very well. So yeah, I think that was definitely part of it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we too hope very much so that this statue is the conversation starter for many conversations that we all need to have, uncomfortable and comfortable, and that we, have an opportunity to come together. And when we talk about Douglass, that's one of the things that we do with Douglass Week is that, we talk about Frederick Douglass and the many topics and themes and ideas and thoughts and projects and ideas, events that come up when you talk about Douglass. There's so much to talk about. And like you said, Ellen, like you said earlier, he still has such an impact today, and there's a reason why. And that is often where the conversation can start and has to start. And this beautiful statue is hopefully one of those conversation starters for many, many people. And we'll let you know how things go in Belfast. Hopefully people will admire the statue, share on social media. I'm happy to include your social media handles as well. So tag these guys and check out their other work. And we can't wait to see what else you are working on. I know you're very busy. So maybe hand over to you both for some maybe final thoughts, things you wanted to share about the process, something that stuck with you, something that was very memorable, something that you would like to share with the audiences before we finish up today. Alan, maybe first over to you.
Okay, well, yeah, I would just like to say that I think that Belfast as a city is has really come on in leaps and bounds over the years. Even right throughout the Troubles, it has developed and really is a super place. So I would like to give Belfast City a shout. Go and visit the place. It's wonderful. It's a great city, and the people really are fabulous. So from that point of view, and so I'm delighted that there is a statue now of Frederick Douglass in a place like Belfast, and is being received really well. So from that point of view, perhaps there will be a change of opinion, an attitude towards racism. We certainly would hope so. But go visit Belfast, folks. It's just a super place. And the Guinness is wonderful. That's about it for me.
Thank you, Ellen, for that. And yes, absolutely do visit Belfast, do visit the Fred Douglass statue. But before we wrap up, Hector, anything else that you would like to share with the audience today about Frederick Douglass, about the process, about the statue, about your other work, maybe something that you're working on now that we can anticipate and look forward to?
Yeah, I'm just working on a few private commissions at the moment. So sadly, they probably won't be in the public realm. But no, it was just such an honor to work on this piece, and yeah, it was a joy. All the it was it was a fabulous experience, and very appreciative that Alan and I got to work on this together. And thank you very much. It was he's a brilliant man, and yeah, I think it's fantastic that there's a sculpture of him there now for people to see and learn from, and contemplate his life.
Thank you. I agree. Couldn't agree more. I think the impact that the statue will have in the community and spark conversations and talk about Douglas's contribution to the fight of equality and anti-racism and all the many things that he did that are so relevant today. I hope many, many conversations start right there in Rosemary Street at the statue and, of course, during Douglas Week. And we're so glad that you joined us today for this conversation. And like I said, I'll link your websites, I'll link your socials and other relevant things that we talked about today here in the notes and on YouTube. But just wanted to say thank you so much again to you both for taking the time out of your schedule to talk with us about the Frederick Douglass statue in Belfast. And if you're around for Douglas Week or any other time that you visit Belfast, go check it out and let these guys know what you think. And so thank you very much, Ellen and Hector, for the conversation today. And I appreciate you, I appreciate the sculpture, and thank you very much. And hopefully we'll get to see much more of you in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.